Howdy and welcome to my channel. So the first video didn't fire and it was pretty expected because that was just a boring introduction video, but maybe someone will find it useful later on. I think this one should catch you because I'm going to be talking about my experience growing lettuce in hydroponic. I'll talk about the stuff that I learned, benefits and drawbacks of the NFT towers like you see here. So about the fixture that you see here, I didn't make it myself, but instead bought from the local supplier. I'm pretty sure you saw a lot of this in different shapes and forms on the market. For those who doesn't know how it works, it basically consists of the container for a nutrient solution and the tower with a bunch of holes for the net pots. And the pump pushes the nutrient solution to the top of your tower and watering the plants from the top. The roots hang in the air, receiving as much oxygen as they need, increasing the yield. So if you compare the time the plants need to grow in hydroponic system versus the soil, for example, it will be much faster. So in this case, you can get your plants harvested, for example lettuce, in 4 to 6 weeks, while in soil it will take you up to 6 to 10 weeks. So it's pretty fast, and it's pretty important if you look at it from the business perspective. Of course, there are some downsides, and we'll talk about them now. So the first thing, you have to make sure that you don't have problems with electricity. If you won't water them for more than 12 hours, there is a chance that your roots will completely dry out and just fall away from your plants. This way it will die and there's no going back. From my experience, they were fine without watering for 8 to 9 hours straight. The second thing is mostly applies to my case. As you can see, my tower has a lot of holes. I mean, you don't see them exactly, but you can imagine seeing those 4. Yeah, but basically it has a lot of them and it's super dense, and that's just too much. I'm growing lettuce and it requires something like 20 centimeters from the middle of the net pots. And yeah, I can provide it. I was planting them super dense at first, but someone on the second or third week, I had to just basically replant them, and the rest of the holes just completely useless. So the third thing is the light. There are a lot of problems with it. You basically cannot use quantum boards here, that's pretty obvious. You need to look for something like quantum bars or T5, T8 cubes, or any other light that looks like a stick basically. Another thing is finding the proper light with the proper height for your specific tower. So they may come like in 50 centimeters, 1 meter tall, 1.2, 1.4, but it really doesn't matter. Before buying the tower, you have to make sure that you find the proper light with the proper height, because otherwise you won't know what to do with the light you bought. Another thing with the light is if you find them separately and you know that it fits your tower, you're gonna find a way to somehow mount it to the tower. As you can see, my fixture was coming with the light from the supplier, but it still didn't guarantee it will be good. I had to make some sort of contraption because the light was completely off, it was too far from my plants, and I had to figure out something to move them closer, and it looks really weird, let's say. So the first thing is the airflow. As you can see, plants can grow all around the tower, and it's obvious that you cannot use just a single fan pointing from one side to give them enough airflow. I was using just the regular fan, like for the home. In the oscillating mode, I just pointed at the middle of my plants somewhere, and it was just blowing the air from left to right, right to left. And in cases when it was blowing to the wall, it was making like a reflection of the air, so I was trying to get some air to the plants from the other side. But it's still not enough. For them, it's pretty obvious from the way they look. Another thing with just the basic home fans is you just cannot give enough airflow for the whole tower. So my tower has 1.5 meters tall, and it's obvious that the the airflow that's generated by my fan cannot reach the bottom at the top of the tower. So I had to plant my plants somewhere in the middle, so they will be dense enough and that they would receive enough airflow. I saw people recommending or using some different contraptions. So there was an idea to use the vertical pipes with the holes inside of them on the diagonal corners, and you would put the computer fan on top of it, generating like the pressurized airflow inside the pipe, and this way you would blow the air directly to the plant that you have. But I'm pretty sure that's not what you want when you buy a tower for like indoor growing, for your like personal growing. Yeah, my opinion is yes, really complicated. Although it's not the downsides of the NFT towers in general, but it's still important to mention. So in my case, holes are made inside of the tower, and this way the net pot sits really deep. And because of that, the substrate, in my case that's a Rockwool, gets super wet. And the light make it possible for algae to live on top of it. Although it's not considered harmful for the plants, as long as it's only on top of the Rockwool, I still just don't like seeing it. So if you really want to buy the tower like this, just look for the one that has poking holes. So this way the water will only cover like just the bottom of the Rockwool, for example, and it will be just enough for your plants. Also make sure your tank is not transparent, because otherwise light coming from the outside will make algae inside of your nutrient solution, and it will be way worse than having it just on the top of your Rockwool. You'll have to clean up somehow or just flush completely the whole nutrient solution, the whole tank. Yeah, so if you end up buying the transparent tank or semi-transparent, just color it into something. I used the aluminum foil. You can use the black and white panda plastic wrap, white side out to the light, and it will be enough. As I said, I had a lot of holes, more than I actually used, so I had to wrap my whole tower into the plastic wrap. You might also want to do it because otherwise it will sprinkle the water all over your room, and it's bad. I just don't like it. So the thing I want to mention and to say is just don't leave it like that. You will have condensate or just the water drops on the sides of your plastic wrap from the inside, and the light will also make algae of it, and it will might end up in your nutrient solution. So I would recommend wrapping it into something. I use the aluminum foil again. You can do some plastic wraps, just untransparent one. Also, one of the problems of such systems is it's really problematic to grow different plants simultaneously. Different varieties require different NPK ratios, different nutrients concentrations, different pH levels, and so far and so on. So you need to understand that most likely you will be able to grow only a single type of plant on your tower, and it's really not funny when you're doing it for yourself, when you want to eat your own food, because you would like to have some variety, right? Even in my situation, it seems like I'm growing only lettuce and it should be fine, but my fluffy one can live with up to 1.5, 1.6 EC, and it's gonna be alright. But the iceberg can handle only up to 1.2 without getting the tip burn. Let's summarize what you need to take care of before buying one of these. Make sure you don't have problems with electricity. Look for the towers that has smaller number of holes and bigger distance between them. Find the proper light for the tower. Take care of the airflow. Make sure the light does not get to your nutrient solution. And also preferably look for the towers that have holes that are poking out of it. So let's finish with the tower. Although it might seem like that's a good solution because you can grow a lot of plants at the same time, but it's not really true. So on this tower, it's 1.5 meter tall. I can grow only up to 20 heads of lettuce at the same time. And it seems like a lot, but it takes up to 1 square meter, I think. And if you take just the square plot with the area of square meter, you can also grow up to 20, maybe even 25 plants at the same time. But you can also stack them vertically. So, in my opinion, if you're growing stuff inside, if you're using just the light, you don't use the sun, you don't have the sun for it obviously, I would go with the shelves system and just growing stuff horizontally. I think that this system might be a really good solution for growing stuff outside when you have a natural light, which is the sun obviously. So this way, getting like just a bigger tower will let you grow more plants on the same square meter than just on the soil. Now let's talk about my experience growing lettuce here. So that's actually my first successful harvest. I had a previous try and it didn't end up well. And I think that happened for the next reasons. So the guys that sold me this stuff told me that I can germinate seeds just in the tower. So I did that, and because seeds need the humidity to germinate, I had to wrap the tower into the plastic wrap. Obviously there was also a problem with overwatering the Rockwool, and the plastic wrap didn't let enough light to go through it. So that was just completely bad decision, and my plants just ended up super leggy. Also, one more thing that I noticed is that if your substrate is really wet, the plant does not feel the need to develop the strong root system and look for the water outside of your substrate. So I had this problem with my first try, and when I took the plants, and I just noticed that the roots are just all around the rock wool, and it didn't poke out of it, and it's pretty bad. So obvious recommendation is to germinate your seeds separately and wait for the roots to start poking out of the rock wool, for example, and only after that transplant them into your hydroponic system or even soil. Also make sure to use light when you see the sprouts from your seeds. This way you will make sure that your plants are not getting leggy from the very beginning, and you won't have to fight it later on or even just throw them away. Also, don't rush with exposing the fresh seedlings to the oxygen. Wait for them to have a couple of leaves, like the first one, some root system. This way they will live through the stress with the higher chances. So make sure you provide enough light, keep your system clean, don't let the pH stay on the edges of the recommended range for more than a day. Watch for your EC and water levels, and your plants will thrive. As a matter of fact, don't plant more than 10 or 15 heads of lettuces at the same time, in the same day. When it grows big, you won't be able to eat it fresh fast enough. I personally just get some older leaves, like 3 to 5 a day, and I can't keep up with their pace. So I already had to give away 5 heads or something. If you can and your system allows it, I would recommend planting them with the, let's say, 1 week window. This way you will have a steady and continuous flow of fresh lettuce. I think that's enough for one video. We actually talk about the NFT tower more than about my experience, but you can say that all the stuff I told you came from it, so I guess that's alright. Anyway, I hope this video was useful and interesting for you guys. Don't hesitate to leave questions and feedback in the comments. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next video. See ya and have a good one.